Chapter 2. I'd already cleaned up the kitchen, set the table for supper, and peeled the potatoes when the phone rang again. "Hello, Elizabeth." My heart sank. It was Miss McBride. Nobody ever calls to say they are going to be on time. "We're going to be late," she said, confirming my fears. "We've been on the road since just after 4. It was a terrible connection. Her voice was crackly and tiny. "But it's after 5:30 now. The roads are just terrible. I had my husband stop at a phone booth so I could let you know. The rain has flooded out some roads completely, and there are underpasses where the water is so deep cars are stalling out. The wind has taken down trees and wires. The whole city is a mess. The traffic lights aren't working at some intersections. You have power, right?" "Power? Oh yes, we have electricity. I hadn't even thought of that possibility. What would I do with 2 kids in a house without power? How would I even finish making supper?" "Elizabeth, I know it's an imposition, but we really need you to stay with the children. Of course, I wouldn't dream of leaving them alone. If they were a little older, it wouldn't be so bad, just for an hour or so. I can't imagine it'll take us any longer than that." "That's okay, Miss McBride. I'll feed them supper." "Thank you so much. You should call your mother and let her know what's happening. I'm sure she's worried, and she'll get more worried when you're late." "I'll call as soon as we hang up." "And tell her my husband will drive you home. Nobody should be out on a night like this." "It's not far for me to walk," I said without thinking. Then I realized it would be late and dark and pouring rain, and I would have to cross the river by myself on that little footbridge. "No, we insist. Thank you," I said, relieved. "There'll be plates in the oven waiting for you and Mr. McBride, and I'll put on a pot of coffee. Elizabeth, you are a lifesaver. It's so good to know that the children are in such good hands. They're as safe as houses." Miss McBride laughed. "My mother used to say that all the time." "So did my Nana," I said, "although I'm not even sure what it means. I've always thought it meant that you're never as safe anywhere as you are in your own home. This wasn't my house, but we were safe here. The worst thing that could happen would be the electricity going out. Sitting in the dark without a television to keep David happy would be hard, but not impossible. Just so you know, if the power goes off, there are candles in the cupboard above the fridge," I said. "I guess that's an advantage not having doors on the cupboards, and of course we'll pay you for staying later." "That's not necessary," I said. "This is just what neighbors do. Everyone is so friendly in Weston. I guess we all know each other here." "Well, I just know that you're a doll, Elizabeth. Oh, my husband is honking at me. I'd better go. The sooner we get going, the sooner we'll get there. Drive carefully. Bye." I put the phone down. The second it settled into the cradle, it rang again, and I shrieked in surprise. David turned away from the television and gave me a look that I was a complete idiot, which was how I felt. "It startled me," I tried to explain. I picked it up. "Hello?" "Hello, Lizzie." It was my mother. The line was filled with static, no better than when I was talking to Miss McBride. "I've been trying to reach you." I was talking to Miss McBride. "I was hoping that you were talking to somebody. When the lines go down, it gives a busy signal, and I was afraid that your phone was out. There are lines down across the city. Miss McBride told me. They're running a bit late." She sighed. "I was hoping they'd be there soon. They left early, but she said the roads are terrible. Traffic lights aren't working, power lines are down, roads are flooded." "Your father just called and said the same thing," she told me. "He's out with his tow truck. There are stalled cars all over the city. He's even had to fish a car out of a flooded underpass. He told me the man was sitting on the roof of his car like it was a little island." That struck me as funny, and I laughed. My mother chuckled on the other end of the line. "Did Miss McBride say how long they thought they might be?" my mother asked. "They didn't know, but they weren't even close. They said they'd try to get here as soon as possible. I'm going to fix supper for the children." "That's a good idea. Now, Lizzie, this is important. When they do arrive home, under no circumstances are you to try to use the footbridge to come home. Mr. McBride is going to drive me. It might be better if your father came and got you in the truck. Raymore Drive must be a canal by now. Unless you hear differently from me, you should expect him to come and get you around 9. "But that's not even for over 3 hours. It already seemed like I'd been here too long." "It might take them that long to get home. Call when they get there, okay? If your father is free sooner, he'll come and wait with you until the McBrides arrive." "Okay, thanks. That would be good." "You'll be fine, Lizzie." I guess she had heard the uneasiness in my voice. "Just sit tight, stay inside, and dry. Watch some television with the children, and remember, you're as safe as houses." That made me smile. "I know. I'll call when they get home. And try to stay off the line until then. Never wise to be on the phone during an electrical storm." "It's not going to hit the phone line, Mom," I said. "You know how I worry." "That I know," I said. "I love you, Lizzie. Bye for now." I hung up the phone. There was no point in feeling sad about the whole thing. There was work to do. I might as well start boiling the potatoes. A good, warm, filling meal would be the ticket to feeling better. At least if the power went out, supper would be cooked. I walked into the kitchen, put a lid on the pot, and turned on the burner. A flash of lightning suddenly illuminated the whole sky, followed almost immediately by a clap of thunder. That meant the storm was practically on top of us. I looked out the window. It wasn't that late. There should still have been some light, but the thick clouds and heavy rain had made night come early. There was another burst of lightning, and the world was lit up again. Up the river, I could just make out the outline of the footbridge. I could see the skeleton of the railings, and wait, that couldn't be right. Then a third flash of lightning, and what I saw astonished me. The water was bouncing against the side of the bridge and flooding right over it. The railings were still clearly above the water, but there was water going over the bridge. I'd never seen that before, even during the spring floods. It would have been impossible to walk across the bridge now. Thank goodness I was going to be getting a drive instead. I just stood there at the window, watching the rain pound down, waiting for another lightning burst to illuminate the scene. I was so fascinated by the weather as David was by the television. It was a phenomenal storm. In one more gigantic flash lit up the whole sky, the whole room, and then it went dark everywhere. The lights of the house had gone off. The television had gone off. For a few seconds, nobody said anything. The only sound was the rain pounding against the windows. Then there was another flash of lightning that lit up the room eerily. In that split second, I saw Susie standing in the doorway to the kitchen. She looked panic-stricken. I tried to think of something to say to reassure her, but before I could come up with anything, the lights flickered and came on, then went off. Then, thank heavens, came back on again, to stay. I walked towards Susie. "See, there's nothing to worry about," I said cheerfully, trying to reassure her. I wasn't worried. David called out from the living room. He sounded almost angry, just annoyed that the television went off. "Sometimes the power goes off for a few seconds when there's lightning," I continued, ignoring him. David stood up and turned the set back on. A little grayish light started to glow in the middle of the screen. It got lighter and whiter and slowly grew until it took up the whole screen. The white resolved into different shades until fuzzy figures appeared. "Maybe you should do your homework instead of watching television," I suggested. "Why should I?" he asked. "I've got all weekend." "Isn't it better to do your homework on Friday night so you have the rest of the weekend to just enjoy yourself?" I suggested. "I think I'm going to wait and see what happens. The way it's raining, there's a chance there won't be any school on Monday." "What do you think is going to happen?" "Do you think the school is going to float away?" I asked. "I can hope." "Better not hope too hard. Think about it. The school is up on a hill, and we're down here by the river. If the school floated away, what do you think would happen to us?" "Could something happen to us?" Susie asked. She sounded anxious. "Nothing will happen to us," I said firmly, kicking myself for having spooked her. "We're in a house. Houses don't float away." I turned to David. "Schools don't float away. Even if the lights go out again, all that means is that we'll be safe in the dark instead of safe in the light." "I don't like the dark," Susie said. "Neither do I. Let's make sure it doesn't get dark, even if the lights do go out again. Come." I took Susie's hand and led her into the kitchen. Daisy followed along behind us, her toenails click-clacking on the plywood floor until she stopped at her empty bowl and looked up. I was tempted to add some more food to her bowl just to make her happy, but I'd been told not to do that. Apparently Daisy would just keep eating and eating and eating. Maybe she didn't like the water, but she did like food. Daisy was one pudgy dog. I pushed over a chair, climbed up, reached over the fridge, and pulled down the candles. There were 5. 2 were just little stubs, and 3 had never been lit. "Can you get me 5 egg cups?" I asked. Susie climbed up on another chair, and so she could reach the cupboard. I pulled a roll of aluminum foil out of the drawer, Susie put the egg cups on the counter. I ripped off a piece of foil and rolled it around the end of a candle and then put it snugly in the egg cup so it would stand up. I repeated the process 4 more times. If the lights go out, we're ready, I said. Could we light one of them now? Susie asked. Why not? I didn't have matches, and I didn't even know where to look. I know where there are matches, Susie said, without me even asking. She ran quickly out of the room, and when she returned, I lit one candle and set it on the counter out of the way. Do you think Mommy and Daddy will be here soon? Susie asked. Could be soon. But it could be longer, right? I shook my head. It's almost 6:30. They left at 4. They could practically walk here in 3 hours. Susie's face brightened. Don't worry, I said. It's just rain. It's not like they're made of gingerbread. They won't melt. I bet you they'll be home by the time we eat supper. Why don't you wash your hands and help me put the food out?